Yes, yes, yes. How are we doing? Welcome to episode 2 of 12 of our deep dive into my second best-selling book, Remember the Mission. Okay, so if this is new to you, basically what we do, or what we are doing every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 1 o'clock is I'm reading like a chapter of the book, but it's not just a case of reading it to you. We're doing some insights and implementations. So we can talk about the theory of it, how we can implement it, how we can use it to improve our lives. So what we're going to do is I just need to notify a couple of people who wanted to come in that we are going live. And then we are going to get into it. I've got some exciting things to share with you as well today. So you're going to want to hear this. You are going to want to hear this. Right, boom, send. Cool. So if you do come through, then please do let me know. If you're watching back, then please let me know that you're watching back. We put these up on the Remember the Mission podcast as well. So if you prefer to listen by audio, you can listen by audio. But I think it will be good for you guys just to interact and let me know what's happening. So some key dates for you coming up. All right. There are 3 major dates that are on the horizon. Number 1. Wednesday, the 22nd of May, I am running a mission masterclass, and we're going to be looking at how you can build a life mission, okay, based off some of the strategies that are going on in this book to make sure that the rest of 2024 turns out to be one of the most productive and purposeful years of your life. And I believe that if we get the mission right and we put the steps in play, that you can achieve more in the last 6 months of the year than you have done in the last 12 months. And I think that that is a really powerful statement to be able to do that. So on Wednesday, the 22nd of May at 2000 BST, it's BST. I know there's a lot of you that follow me in America as well. So you'd have to go and Google and figure out whatever time that's going to be in America. I'll be running that. It's the official name, okay, is Mission Mastery Masterclass. Okay, so we're going to be crafting your mission for success in 2024. Okay, the second date for you is the 3rd of June, where I am running my free 5-day, okay, Ignite Your Mission 5-day experience. So over 5 days, we are going to be deep diving into how to create a mission. You're going to be talking to guys who are on a mission. You're going to be going through exercises, challenges. It's going to be an action-packed 5 days. And if you're a man that wants to improve himself personally and professionally, that is the place to be. And the third date is that on the 17th of June, okay, so to check there, we will be launching our very first Remember the Mission Blueprint, which is going to be our program. Okay, so it's a paid program next month, midway towards the end of next month, for people that want to come and work with me over 90 days. So there's 3 dates for your diaries. Okay, registration will be available over the masterclass will be available next week, and then after that the challenge registration, and then after that place would be available for the bigger thing. So let's get into this. So chapter or episode 2, we're going to be looking at the 1% rule. So just to recap, from Monday we talked about the untold truth, and that was really confronting the man in the mirror. That was cutting all of the fluff and the BS that we were going through. That was really stopping you from reaching a life mission, reaching an achievement, being able to unpack everything that you needed to unpack, right? So we're going to go through the 1% rule. And I think this is an important rule because I think there is, for so much expectation of where to start, how do I progress? So let's go through it. Let's do some insights and implementations. This is considerably less pages, so we won't be as long as we were last time, but we'll get into it. So I want to explain this mentality to you. It's about understanding your own expectations versus your own level of conditioning based on where you are today. So we're setting the scene. I regularly participate in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm going to use this sport and its grading system as an analogy. Okay, imagine yourself as a BJJ white belt, the color of the belt for a beginner, someone at the start of their journey. You've been practicing BJJ for 8 weeks, and in that time, you've grown in confidence and are starting to demand more from yourself, which this does happen. In training one day, you start rolling, grappling with a purple belt. To give some context, a purple belt is someone that would have anywhere between 6 and 12 years of experience, okay, compared to your 8 weeks, all right? So that's a huge gulf, like anywhere between sort of 6 and 12 years versus 2 months, all right? Perspective. Okay, when you leave the club after the morning's training, you've been well beaten, and you would be. But that is a common part of the process, and you can only get better by embracing the learn, grow, repeat process. You learn by being outskilled and losing. You grow by learning, not making the same mistakes again. You gain valuable experience and repeat the process. Eventually, your conditioning improves, as does your skill set, standard, and mindset. But this is where you start piling on the personal pressure by having expectations of yourself that don't meet your current conditioning mentality, emotionally, and physically. It almost becomes an ego thing, if you like. So let's look at that there in terms of that opening chapter. We're basically using the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grading system because I think it's a great way to be able to recognize difference in conditioning and the management and perspective of your expectations. Now, if we look at the guy who has been training 8 years and he's a purple belt and he's been doing it a long time, that means for 8 years, in those first 2 years, he would have been continuously beat, outwitted, outsmarted, outskilled, and he would have gone through all of that hardship that white belt is going through right now, okay? But over the years, he's got better. He's practiced. He's been consistent. He's keep showing up. It takes anywhere between 10 and 15 years to get a black belt, right? That's the ultimate mission. So if you want to put this in here, life mission, one of my life missions is to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like literally, that is one of my ultimate goals. But I know that I'm going through so much right now that I have to like be patient. And this is where we understand the process, is that I'm about 5 years into my jiu-jitsu. I probably got about realistically another 6 years to go before I achieve that mission. So me going every single day going, oh my God, I'm rubbish. Oh my God, I didn't do that. Me now getting tapped. If someone's strangling me and I'm tapping, I don't worry about my ego being affected anymore because I've been so conditioned to doing it. It's part of the process. It's almost saying, thank you for strangling me. Now I've learned something and I'm not going to do that again. And with jiu-jitsu, we sometimes do. And in life, we do. And you have to understand that when you create a life mission, let's say it's one that's in 5 years from now, okay? The journey becomes about achieving that outcome in 5 years, that mission. So the process is what creates you. It's what creates the character, the values, the principles. And as you evolve as a man going through that period of time, things will change and you will see the world differently. But as long as you keep coming back to your skill base, you can understand the bigger picture. Thinking that you can do it in just 2 months or 2 years and you're going to have this weight off, that is the mistake that so many men make. And that is why they give up so quickly. And that's why they never reach their full potential. And I have come across so many men that have come into our world and it's got hard. They've allowed their feelings to get the better of them and they've disappeared and have gone back to that life. You have to understand that this grind, the wins, the losses, the consistent, relentless things that life throws at you, you've still got to be able to show up and overcome all of those things, right? So that's what we're trying to get into there. That's what this chapter is trying to set, okay? So what happens when this scenario plays out? What do you say to yourself? You go back to that child mentality in the playground and say, I'm shit at this. Or what's the point? This is crap. You become angry, frustrated, and emotional. You start feeling sorry for yourself as a byproduct of the deficit between your expectations and the level of your conditioning. Maybe you start to blame everyone else for your reaction, but remember, it's only you that has misplaced the level of expectation you have placed on yourself. No one else has put that expectation on you guys. So when you are showing up into that life and you're putting self-pressure onto yourself, you put yourself under so much self-pressure, your anxiety and depression are through the roof because you're not meeting those expectations. And then you end up going through this big cycle of like, what the fuck is my life about? Like blindly driven by expectations and emotions, right? And if we lowered those expectations to the standard that we're at, i.e. I'm a white belt, I'm going to get strangled for a year, and then I'm going to figure out how to defend myself, we would be able to accept the process and go, this is the journey. This is just the eating shit phase that I have to go through before then I'm ready to grow, okay? I often see this scenario played out when it comes to nutrition and training programs. I hear this diet plan isn't working for me, or I'm not losing any weight on this plan. Sound familiar? Anyone been in that situation? Just let me know in the comments. The reality is that you aren't tracking your calories properly, or you aren't really following the program 100%, and or you haven't given it enough time and attention and put in the required work. You'll argue that you have, but the reality is that you haven't tracked everything and that you haven't been patient or shown up to make the program work. Instead, you've built up an expectation and it hasn't happened quickly enough for you. Or you've prioritized work commitments or didn't manage your time correctly, so you've bailed and just not shown up. This is the point in your head where you're going, fuck you, JB, you don't know anything. But really, the truth, you can't hide from the truth. You know the truth. You know in the back of your mind that whenever you've tried to do something, you are the one that's quit. You're the one that's not shown up 100%. You're the one that's not committed fully, right? And if you committed fully to yourself a year ago, imagine how good your life would be right now. Okay, but the problem is everyone wants quick. Everyone wants now. When people realize that their life isn't the way they want it to go and they've lost direction and they've lost purpose, they want instant gratification. They don't understand the delayed gratification. Don't understand that actually the grind is the process. That is the change. That's what we've got to get in our heads, right? And once again, the process of continually changing. Going back to the original example of jiu-jitsu training, you haven't been training long enough to keep up with the purple belt, so you bail. And once again, the process and the consistency of change is disrupted. Okay. Take a moment to think of where and when something like this has happened in your life, where you have set the expectations too high for the actual level of conditioning you were at. What were the consequences, the emotions, the reactions, the decisions you made? Be honest with yourself. Opening up to mistakes or misplaced priorities is a great learning example and really raises your levels of self-awareness. So if you're brave enough and you're watching this back, write something, an example, and stick it in the comments here. That's the first sign of confronting the man in the mirror, okay? So here's an example. I started playing football again recently at the age of 42. Obviously, I wrote this book a few years ago. After 7 years out of the sport, and I believe I could keep up with any of the lads. As a result of that thinking, I was still as fit and sharp as I had been 7 years before. I injured myself constantly. Okay, my hamstrings were regularly strained. My calf was under pressure. I wasn't as sharp on the ball, and my passing range was shot to pieces. I felt pretty frustrated and not being the player I used to be, and becoming injured all the time. My expectations were unrealistic, okay, for the levels of conditioning, both physically and mentally. So I've since decided to only be available as a sub for the last 20 minutes of a game, which is more realistic expectation for me to reach. And that was a really tough year for me there, because I thought I could just go straight back in. I used to be a great footballer, used to play at a very high level, and thought I could just go back in after 7 years and get it like that. And actually, it probably would have taken me 2, 3, 4 seasons to get my touch back, to get my fitness back, tweaking everything. It just wasn't happening, and it was frustrating, and my ego got the better of me. So I allowed that ego to dictate my progression, right? Getting this right, being honest with yourself and achieving balance is so important here. There's a gap and a deficit between what you are capable of and what your expectations are. So you need to be able to equal this out. I use running as an example this time to make sense of this process. Let's say you are a beginner runner, which means understanding that a 10K run is most likely out of your reach right now, which it would be. The thought of running 6 miles makes you feel anxious and nervous, but that's okay. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. You're a beginner. So accepting your limitations, underlining in bold, accepting your limitations at this point in time is the honesty part. Sure, you might have run once upon a time, but it was a long while ago. So you are going to have to go back to the beginner stage and build up. You'll have to drop that ego and accept where you are. Okay, so this is a great example of accepting your limitations. And that is very tough for a man who just wants to grow, right? They're seeing their friends grow, they're seeing their peers grow, they're seeing everyone else doing this, and they want to catch up. Again, like immediate gratification. Okay, managing those expectations early. When you were a baby, you obviously couldn't walk. It was something you had to learn to do. But we all eventually get there with the persistence, pushy parents. And that too will keep going. Back then, when we were just starting out on our first steps, we didn't suffer from self-doubt or overthinking. When it comes to building yourself up, I need you to almost go back to having that baby brain. We need to eradicate your self-doubt and overthinking and just take action without thinking. Let's say your limit as a beginner runner is maybe 2 to 4K at the moment. Maybe even walk/run, but it's manageable. When you complete each run, it gives you that feeling of satisfaction that you've achieved a milestone and a start point. As time progresses and the weeks turn into months, you become more conditioned physically, mentally, and emotionally, similar to a baby transitioning from crawling to walking. It also means your expectations rise. You've built up confidence in what you can achieve and you've stretched your limitations. So we're growing here now. Mentally, emotionally, we're growing, we're building. And over the week, when the weeks turn to the months, then we should expect our limitations to rise. We should raise our expectations because we've been doing the work. Enter overthinking and self-doubt. One of the issues you'll face throughout this process is comparing yourself to your current level of conditioning to someone else. You'll use statements like, it's not as good as your 100-miler and it's pretty slow run, or you're all better runners than me, right? Like a proper pity party. But when in your mind does good become good enough? And why are you underselling your own achievements? It's your fucking achievement, dude. You earned it. And this is the biggest fucking gripe that I have. Is that someone say to me, I ran my first 10K, but it's not as good as your 100-miler. Of course it is. Because in your mind, a 10K is a 100-miler to you. And you're so fucking driven by your overthinking and your ego and the bullshit that goes around your head that you don't even recognize your own achievements. That's probably a little rant, wasn't it? You have to stop caring what anyone else is doing. Why are you judging yourself against others? Okay? You You are trying to be the best version of yourself, okay? Not the best version of anyone else. Everyone and every situation is different. Your fitness levels at the time, your age, and what you've gone through, genetics, your life responsibilities, your history of running. That's why it's important not to compare yourself to others, guys, because you don't know. Somebody could have been running since they were fucking 8 years old and they're 50 now and they're still smashing you into the ground. It's because they've been running for 42 years longer than you. Someone that's been in the gym since they're 14. I've been training since I was 14, right? Every single week, like consistently since I was 14. So yes, as a 46-year-old, I can like keep up with 20-year-olds most of the time, energy-wise. You know, a lot of people at my age are not as fit as that. So they go like, well, I'm not as fit as that. But you're as fit as like you were yesterday and you're better than you were yesterday. And that's what we're competing against. We're not competing against anyone else. We're competing against the Barry of yesterday, all right? Or whatever your name is. Barry's always my example. Barry and Sally are my two go-to example names. Okay. That mindset becomes a wall to stop you progressing further with your development. You micro fail yourself. And the positivity you should be experiencing becomes clouded by thoughts of, it's not good enough. Okay? When really it is. You feel that your performance or result isn't as good as what others are doing. So it's not good at all. But do you know how mad that sounds? Say it out loud. Are you honestly saying it's not good enough because you don't meet the standards of someone else? Please give yourself a virtual slap around the face and wake yourself the fuck up. This is your chapter, your journey, your process, your progression. Don't look for progression based on others' achievements. Base your progression on your own standards and allow yourself the wins, that pat on the back, the milestone. Don't find the flaws in the wins. It's mental to think that people find flaws in their own wins, right? When you win at something, it's like men can't win small. They have to win big. And there lies the problem. I could have probably just said those words and that would have summed up that chapter. Okay. Self-limiting beliefs. When you were at school, no doubt there was one particular girl that was so hot to you. You'd secretly stare at her and imagine that she'd say yes if you asked her out. Mine was Vicky Ripley. Okay, if you remember that girl, stick her in the comments. Let's see if we can find them all. Vicky Ripley was mine. There's always that one girl, or maybe that's just me anyway. Yeah, maybe that is me. It makes me sound weird. That girl, that girl in my year was Vicky. When she spoke to me, I melted. And she said something ridiculous that made me look like a cock. I wasn't very confident around girls. I liked back then and considered myself ugly. That's what I told myself. So that's what I believed. Okay. I had such a crush on her. And it was written all over my face. I would constantly visualize asking her out and us going on a date. And I can't believe I'm admitting this now, but I'd actually practice in a mirror at home and thought that if she was my girlfriend, I'd be the happiest 14-year-old alive. Do you know why she was never my girlfriend? Why we never went out on that date or hung out at the weekend? It wasn't because she said no. It was because I didn't think I was good enough to ask her out. I thought I was ugly. I wasn't a cool kid. I was bullied through school. So why would she go out with me? I didn't even try. And how sad is that? And that's quite sad. Reading that, I feel quite sad. Reading that I wouldn't even try it. It's almost to the point where it's thrown me slightly in terms of, I generally feel that is quite sad that guys feel like that, you know, that they feel like they're almost not worthy enough to be able to show up. And even reading that back has stumped me, for sure, definitely. Oh dear. I never know what she would have said, and that's a pretty sad part of my childhood. She signed my school shirt, "I hope to see you again," along with kisses, but I never did see her again. I've got my Jemima now anyway. I've got my 10. Imagine if you collected in a sack all of the things that you didn't do in your life due to your internal self-limiting beliefs or because of fear. The races you didn't run, the girls you never asked out, the jobs you never applied for, the courses you never signed up for. If you hadn't had those self-limiting beliefs, what would you have achieved? What would be different? What you feel, would you feel more fulfilled and happier? Maybe more accomplished? I think that's quite a powerful sub-chapter of the book. I feel like that, reading that out loud, it's been a couple of years since I've read this, and reading that, it almost gives me goose pimples about all of the possibilities that we have that we never follow through because of our self-limiting beliefs. It's very powerful, right? Here's a scenario played out. If I apply for this job, what if I don't like it and I'm stuck there? What if I get found out? I don't want to feel like an imposter. The job could bring you more family time as it's based closer to home, and it has more opportunities in terms of growth and promotion. On the other hand, I'm really comfortable where I am, and I don't want to be the weak link in my new team. Anxiety, 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 overthinking, okay? You've just created your own self-limiting beliefs and blocked yourself from taking up a possibly amazing opportunity. And that, in a nutshell, is your mind when it comes to doing anything. You talk yourself out of nearly everything, thinking you aren't good enough. You are overthinking the process and are weighed down by fear. 100%, right? And I get this a lot when it comes to men investing in themselves. How many men could be much further down the line in their life if they just pulled the trigger and saw the investment that they could put into themselves to go and ask the girl out, to go and change the job, to go and reach that mission, whatever that mission is, start the business, ask the girl out, overcome the self-limiting beliefs. You know, there's huge power in that. Okay, we're on to our last page. Leap of faith. Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith and say, fuck it. Let's see what happens. If you are always thinking the worst case scenario, how will you ever move forward? Part of learning and growing is stepping into the unknown and accepting that failure is part of the process. But if you don't try, you will never know. It's time to take a good, long, hard look in that mirror. Stop beating yourself up, stop overthinking, and stop setting the bar too fucking high too soon. You can't fool me. I've taken every step you have. I've faced the black clouds, and I've dealt with the demons and the voices of uncertainty that hold you back from being where you want to be. Okay. Now it's time to put on the elite operator hat and start smashing down any walls that try to get in the way of your mission. Okay. In this book, I'm going to help you establish the elite operator mentality to do just that, so that you can focus on your mission. Are you with me? Are you committed? Have you got your game face on? So if you feel you are, you can stick that in the comments. We've looked at the reality of your situation, and I've given you a brief description of who I am. That part of the book I'm not going to read, okay? I've introduced you to the elite operator mindset and discussed how your expectations can grind you to a halt without accepting your current levels of conditioning. So now you are ready to create your mission. The most important phase of creating the new version of you. This will be your map, your North Star, your compass, your blueprint, your purpose. It's the reason you'll show up. And even when you don't feel like it, boom. Okay, so that's, in a nutshell, talking about self-limiting beliefs, moving forward at the 1% rule, understanding your limitations, understanding your expectations, how it all musters into a cycle of emotions that either drive you forwards or hold you back. Okay, you've got to understand that the thing that we're trying to do with men is not a quick fix. It is not a fad. It's not something that we can like complete very, very quickly. You are going to achieve 1% wins and you're going to notice differences very, very quickly in the immediate path. Then the honeymoon period finishes. Then it's when the real work starts. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. So I've just realised that actually on Friday, just this split second, I am in London running a workshop for my mentor group. So I am going to figure out when I'm going to do this next for the 3rd episode. I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do. There's a good chance it might be tomorrow. But do make sure you check Facebook. And I will let you know by this evening when we're going to do it. Okay. That was an ambush in planning. Guys, have a great day. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what your #1 takeaway was from this.